Now, what I want you to understand is shame, by definition, is not an emotion. It is a core belief about yourself, about who you think you are. There will be emotions that go with that we call shame emotions, but at its core, by definition, shame is a core belief about myself. Who am I? That is the question. And so what shame means is I have a negative view of myself. I see myself as not having a lot of value, not being very lovable. Therefore, I see myself as not being good enough, and therefore less than others around me. I would say 100% of people with complex trauma have some shame. The greater the complex trauma, the greater the shame, but everybody with complex trauma has some shame. In other words, complex trauma affects your core belief about your identity, and it makes it a negative thing. So I want to develop that tonight and just kind of give you some groundwork to help you understand this concept so that you can begin to see the shame in yourself. So what I do when I teach this week at React is I say to the clients, think of times when you feel not good enough. Think of times when you feel not lovable, less than. How would you draw a picture of yourself at that moment in time? And so they'll start giving me their answers, but usually they go along the lines, I wouldn't be able to look people in the eye. I'd be looking at the floor. Some go back to a childhood memory when they didn't feel good enough, and they would want to curl up in a fetal position under their bed or in a closet because they just felt terrible about themselves. Others, I then say, what color is your drawing done in? And you realize that about 95% of the time, the people say it's black and white. There's no color in their shame drawing of themselves. And that to me is significant because it's almost to their mind that shame takes the color out of life. And it makes it a very dull color where you live in a black and white, pleasureless world when you have shame. Another characteristic of people with shame, and I will sometimes ask this, is are you able to look yourself in the eye when you look in the mirror? And many people with shame are not able to look at themselves in the eye when they look in the mirror. Some don't even look in a mirror because they can't stand to do that. Others, when they look in the mirror, never look at themselves in the eye. They either look at themselves from the nose down or from the eyebrows up, because that is what shame does. You don't like yourself because you feel you don't have value, you don't feel good enough, so therefore you don't like yourself. Okay, so now I take clients to this. Every child at a subconscious level comes into the world asking certain questions. Number one, who am I? What is my personality? What am I good at? And then, am I lovable? Do I have any value? Do people want to be with me? Do people like me? What do I have to offer that would make people interested in me? So they are asking those questions at a subconscious level. And then it's not just do people love me, but do they desire me? Do they, when they look at me, not just love me out of obligation, but do their eyes light up and they get excited about spending time with me? So what all of those express, those subconscious questions, are deep longings and desires built into every human being. I want to be desirable. I want to have value. I want to be lovable. I want somebody to want a relationship with me. All of those questions are asked at a subconscious level. So then I say, how do we get the answer to those questions? So I use a metaphor. If a child wants to know who they are externally, what they look like, they look in a mirror. So I say, use that metaphor. if a child wants to know who they are on the inside, their personality, if they have value, if they're lovable, there are mirrors that reflect back to them the answers to those questions. And those mirrors begin with mom and dad. So what mom and dad say to you, how they treat you, their attitude towards you, mirror back to you whether you have value and whether you're lovable. If you take that to a healthy home, a child growing up with healthy parents, what reflection do they get when they look at mom and dad? They get the constant, consistent message, you have great value. You don't have to do anything. You have value inherent within you. You are lovable, and we are committed to unconditional love to you. So a child growing up in that environment, they have a positive self-image. They feel good about themselves. They don't have thousands of insecurities because they know who they are. They know their place, their value, all of that. When you come to complex trauma, the mirror says a negative message. In a healthy home, positive messages come from the mirror. Complex trauma, negative messages. So I want to go through a list of things that mom and dad can do or say to you that mirror back to you messages about who you are. So, and many of you, this is going to start stirring up memories for you because many of these you will have experienced.